The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Sophia Williams felt her vision blur. The industrial kitchen's heat pressed against her like a heavy blanket, and the smell of grease clung to her uniform. Her hands shook as she reached for another plate, the weight of exhaustion pulling at every muscle in her body. She had been on her feet for 14 hours straight, moving between her morning shift at the diner, her afternoon cleaning job at the office building, and now this evening shift at the hotel restaurant. "Sophia, table 6 needs their dessert," called Marcus, the head chef, his voice sharp with impatience. She nodded, though her head felt like it was filled with cotton. This was her third job of the day, and she still had to pick up her 6-year-old daughter Lucy from the neighbor's house. Mrs. Rodriguez had been kind enough to watch Lucy after school, but Sophia knew she was pushing the woman's patience thin with these late pickups. The chocolate cake in her hands seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds as she pushed through the swinging doors into the dining room. The wealthy guests sat in their elegant clothes, laughing and chatting without a care in the world. Sophia envied them their ease, their ability to order a single dessert that cost more than she made in a day. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. The crash echoed through the restaurant as the plate shattered against the marble floor. Sophia's knees hit the ground hard, and she felt the hot sting of embarrassment flood her cheeks. Conversation stopped. Every pair of eyes in the room turned to look at her, sprawled on the floor among the broken porcelain and smeared chocolate. "Oh my God, are you okay?" A woman in a diamond necklace leaned forward in her chair, her voice high with concern that felt more like curiosity than genuine care. Sophia tried to stand, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Her vision swam and she tasted copper in her mouth. When was the last time she had eaten? She couldn't remember. Breakfast had been a cup of coffee and half a piece of toast that Lucy had left on her plate. "Someone call an ambulance," another voice said, but it sounded far away. "No," Sophia whispered, then louder, "No, please. I'm fine. I just need a minute." But she wasn't fine. She was drowning, and she had been for months. Ever since her ex-boyfriend Tony had disappeared, leaving her with nothing but bills and a daughter who asked every day when Daddy was coming home. Sophia had stopped trying to explain that Tony wasn't Lucy's father and that real fathers didn't run away when things got hard. The restaurant manager, a thin man with a permanent frown, pushed through the crowd. "Sophia, what happened? You're making a scene." "I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson. I just got dizzy. I'll clean it up." "You'll go home is what you'll do. We can't have staff collapsing in front of the guests." "Home." The word felt like a joke. Home was a 1-bedroom apartment with a broken heater and a stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen table. Home was Lucy sleeping on the couch because Sophia couldn't afford a 2-bedroom place. Home was the constant fear that they would lose even that small space if she couldn't make rent. "Please," Sophia said, her voice barely a whisper. "I need this job. I'll be more careful. I just haven't eaten today." Mr. Peterson's expression softened slightly, but he shook his head. "Go home, Sophia. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." As she gathered her purse and walked toward the exit, Sophia felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders. She had lost another job, which meant losing another source of income. The math was simple and brutal. Without this job, she couldn't make rent. Without rent, she and Lucy would be homeless. The night air hit her face as she stepped outside, and she leaned against the building's brick wall. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "Lucy is asking for you. She's worried." Sophia closed her eyes and let the tears fall. She was 28 years old and she felt like she was carrying the weight of the world. Every decision she made affected Lucy, and every mistake felt like a betrayal of her daughter's trust. She had dreamed once of opening her own catering business, of building something meaningful with her love of cooking. But dreams didn't pay bills or put food on the table. She walked to the bus stop, counting the change in her pocket. $3.47. Enough for the bus ride home, but not enough for groceries tomorrow. She would have to choose between buying milk for Lucy's cereal or paying for the bus to get to her remaining jobs. The bus arrived and Sophia climbed aboard, finding a seat near the back. She watched the city lights blur past the window and wondered how long she could keep this up. How long before her body gave out completely? How long before she failed Lucy in a way that couldn't be fixed? When she finally reached Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, Lucy ran to her with arms wide open. "Mama, I missed you so much." Sophia scooped up her daughter, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. This was why she fought. This was why she worked 3 jobs and collapsed in restaurants and counted change for bus fare. Lucy's smile was worth every sacrifice, every humiliation, every sleepless night. "I missed you too, baby," Sophia whispered into Lucy's hair. "Let's go home." As they walked the 3 blocks to their apartment, Lucy chattered about her day at school, her teacher's funny jokes, and the book she was reading. Sophia listened and smiled, but her mind was already working on tomorrow's problems. She would have to find another job to replace the one she had lost. She would have to figure out how to make their remaining money stretch until her next paycheck. But tonight, she just wanted to hold her daughter and pretend that everything would be okay. The phone rang at 6 in the morning, jarring Sophia from the few hours of sleep she had managed to get. Lucy was still curled up beside her on the bed, her small face peaceful in the early morning light. Sophia reached for her phone, squinting at the unknown number. "Hello? Is this Sophia Williams?" The voice was crisp and professional, belonging to a woman who clearly hadn't spent the night worrying about rent money. "Yes, this is Sophia. My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm an event coordinator, and I got your number from the catering agency. I have an urgent request for tonight, and I know it's short notice, but I'm hoping you're available." Sophia sat up straighter, her heart beginning to race. She had registered with the catering agency months ago but had only gotten a few small jobs from them. "What kind of event?" "It's a charity gala at the Grandview Hotel. Very exclusive, very high profile. One of our regular servers called in sick, and we need someone who can handle themselves in an upscale environment. The pay is $300 for the evening plus tips." $300. Sophia's breath caught. That was more than she made in a week at the diner. "I'm interested. What time?" "You need to be there by 4 for setup. The event runs from 7 to 11. Black pants, white shirt, and comfortable shoes. Can you do it?" "Yes, absolutely. I'll be there." After Jennifer hung up, Sophia stared at her phone in disbelief. $300 would cover most of their rent. It would mean Lucy could have new school shoes and maybe even a few groceries that weren't generic brand. "Mama?" Lucy's sleepy voice interrupted her thoughts. Who was that? Someone offering Mama a job for tonight, sweetheart? Lucy sat up, her dark eyes wide with hope. "A good job?" "A very good job." Sophia kissed her daughter's forehead. "But it means I'll be working late tonight. I'll have to ask Mrs. Rodriguez to watch you again." Lucy's face fell slightly, but she nodded. At 6 years old, she had already learned that Mama's work was important, even when it meant being apart. Sophia spent the morning calling Mrs. Rodriguez and arranging childcare, then went through her small closet trying to find appropriate clothes. She had one pair of black pants that weren't too worn and a white blouse that was slightly too big but clean and pressed. She would have to do. The afternoon flew by in a blur of preparation. She picked up Lucy from school early, explaining the situation to the teacher and making sure her daughter had everything she needed for the overnight stay at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment. "I'll be back tomorrow morning to make you breakfast," Sophia promised as she kissed Lucy goodbye. "Be careful, Mama," Lucy said, wrapping her small arms around Sophia's neck. "And have fun at the fancy party." The Grandview Hotel was in the heart of downtown, a towering building of glass and steel that reflected the afternoon sun. Sophia had walked past it countless times but had never imagined she would be working inside. The lobby was all marble and crystal, with a fountain in the center that probably cost more than she made in a year. She found the service entrance and reported to Jennifer, a tall woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a clipboard that seemed permanently attached to her hand. "You must be Sophia. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Jennifer looked her up and down, taking in the slightly too large blouse and the shoes that were comfortable but not exactly stylish. "Have you worked high-end events before?" "I've worked in restaurants for years," Sophia said, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. "I understand the importance of professional service." "Good. The guests tonight are very important people. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities. They expect perfection. One mistake and it reflects on all of us." Sophia nodded, thinking about the $300 and what it would mean for Lucy's future. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes. The next hour was spent in training. Jennifer showed her the layout of the ballroom, explained the evening schedule, and introduced her to the other servers. Most of them were younger than Sophia, college students or aspiring actors who took catering jobs to pay their bills. They were friendly enough, but Sophia could tell they saw her as temporary help, someone who wouldn't last long in their world. "The most important thing," Jennifer said as they finished the tour, "is to be invisible. These people don't want to be bothered by the help. Smile, serve, and stay out of their way." As the guests began to arrive, Sophia felt her nerves settle into determination. She had been serving people for years and she knew how to do it well. The fact that these people had more money than she could imagine didn't change the basic requirements of the job. The ballroom was stunning, with crystal chandeliers and flowers that must have cost thousands of dollars. Women in designer gowns mingled with men in perfectly tailored tuxedos, their jewelry catching the light as they moved. The air was filled with the sound of classical music and refined conversation. Sophia picked up her tray of champagne glasses and began to circulate through the crowd. The guests barely looked at her, just as Jennifer had predicted. She was part of the scenery, there to serve but not to be seen. As the evening progressed, Sophia found herself relaxing into the rhythm of the work. She had always been good at reading people, at anticipating their needs before they asked. The skills that had served her well in diners and hotel restaurants worked just as well in this elegant ballroom. "Excuse me, miss?" A woman in a red dress stopped her near the bar. "Could you tell me where the restroom is?" "Of course. If you go through those doors and turn left, you'll find it down the hall." "Thank you so much." The woman smiled warmly. "You're doing a wonderful job tonight." The compliment caught Sophia off guard. She was used to being ignored or criticized, not praised. "Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that." As the night wore on, Sophia began to feel more confident. She was good at this work, and she belonged here as much as anyone else. The $300 was looking more certain with each passing hour, and she allowed herself to imagine what it would feel like to pay bills without anxiety for once. But as she balanced her tray and moved through the crowd, she had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. The accident happened in slow motion. Sophia was carrying a tray of red wine glasses through the crowded ballroom when a woman in a flowing evening gown stepped backward without looking. The woman's elbow caught Sophia's arm, and the tray tilted dangerously. "Oh no," Sophia whispered, trying to regain her balance. Time seemed to freeze as the glasses slid across the silver tray. Sophia watched in horror as one glass flew through the air, its contents arcing like a crimson ribbon. The wine hit its target with perfect accuracy, splashing across the front of a man's crisp white shirt and expensive-looking tuxedo jacket. "I'm so sorry," Sophia gasped, setting down the tray and reaching for her service towel. "I'm so incredibly sorry." The man stood perfectly still, looking down at the red stain spreading across his shirt. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that was graying slightly at the temples and brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. There was something about his stillness that made Sophia even more nervous. "Sir, please let me help you," she said, approaching with her towel. He held up a hand to stop her. "It's fine. These things happen." "No, it's not fine. I've ruined your shirt. Your whole outfit." Sophia's face burned with embarrassment. She could feel other guests staring, could imagine Jennifer's reaction when she found out. "I'm so clumsy. I don't know what happened." "You're not clumsy," the man said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "That woman knocked into you. I saw the whole thing." Sophia looked up at him in surprise. Most wealthy people would have been furious, would have demanded to speak to her manager, would have gotten her fired on the spot. This man was defending her. "Still, I should have been more careful. I should have seen her coming." "You have eyes in the back of your head?" There was the hint of a smile at the corners of his mouth. Despite her mortification, Sophia felt her lips twitch. "Not that I know of." "Then you're forgiven." He began to unbutton his wine-stained shirt. "Is there somewhere I can clean up?" "The men's room is just down the hall," Sophia said, pointing toward the exit. "But sir, your shirt is ruined. I should pay for it." He paused in his unbuttoning and looked at her more closely. "Do you know who I am?" Sophia studied his face, searching for recognition. He was handsome in an understated way, with kind eyes and a smile that seemed genuine. But she couldn't place him. "Should I?" For a moment he looked genuinely surprised. Then his smile widened into something that seemed almost relieved. "No, you shouldn't. I'm James." "Sophia." She extended her hand automatically, then realized she was still holding the wine-stained towel. I'm Sophia. And I'm still really sorry about your shirt." "Sophia?" he repeated as if testing the name. "That's a beautiful name." "Thank you." She felt heat rise in her cheeks again, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment. "I should let you go clean up. And I should get back to work before my supervisor sees what happened." "Of course." But he didn't move immediately. Instead, he continued to study her face with those perceptive brown eyes. "How long have you been doing this work?" "Catering? Just tonight, actually. I've worked in restaurants for years, but this is my first high-end event." "What do you think of it so far?" Sophia glanced around the ballroom, taking in the elegant guests and lavish decorations. "It's beautiful. Very different from the places I usually work." "Different how?" She hesitated, unsure how honest she should be. The food costs more than I make in a day. The women's jewelry could probably pay my rent for a year. It's like a different world. And what do you think of that world? There was something in his tone that made her look at him more carefully. I think it's nice that people can afford beautiful things. But I also think it's important to remember that not everyone can. That's a diplomatic answer. It's an honest answer. She lifted her chin slightly. I'm not bitter about what other people have. I'm just trying to take care of my daughter. You have a daughter? Lucy. She's 6. Sophia's face softened as it always did when she talked about her child. She's the reason I'm here tonight. The reason I work 3 jobs. She deserves better than what I can give her right now. James was quiet for a long moment, and Sophia worried she had said too much. Rich people probably didn't want to hear about her struggles, her failures, her desperate need for the money this job would provide. I should really let you go, she said, stepping back. And I should get back to work. Of course. He started to walk away, then turned back. Sophia? Yes. Thank you. For what? Ruining your shirt. For being honest. Sophia watched him walk away, confused by the encounter but oddly affected by it. There had been something about James that was different from the other wealthy guests. He had treated her like a person, not just a server. He had listened to her answers as if they mattered. She picked up her tray and returned to work, but she found herself looking for him in the crowd. When she finally spotted him again, he was wearing a different shirt. Somehow he had managed to find a replacement and talking to a group of men in expensive suits. But several times throughout the evening she caught him looking at her too. During her break, she asked one of the other servers about him. You don't know who that is? The girl, whose name was Amy, looked at her in amazement. That's James Harrison. He owns like half the real estate in the city. And he's probably worth more money than everyone else in this room combined. Really? Sophia glanced across the ballroom to where James was standing. He was listening intently to something another man was saying, his expression serious and focused. Really? He's like a recluse though. Never does interviews, hardly ever comes to events like this. I heard someone say this is the first time he's been to a charity gala in years. Sophia felt a strange flutter in her chest. A billionaire. She had spilled wine on a billionaire and lived to tell about it. More than that, she had talked to him like a normal person, had shared details about her life that she usually kept private. He seems nice, she said. Amy laughed. Nice? He's gorgeous and rich and mysterious. That's better than nice. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Sophia focused on her work. She had made it through the night without any more disasters, and Jennifer had even complimented her on her professionalism. The $300 was hers, and Lucy would have new shoes and a full refrigerator. But as she cleaned up after the last guest had gone, she couldn't stop thinking about James Harrison and the way he had looked at her with those kind, perceptive eyes. She couldn't stop wondering why he had thanked her for being honest, or why a billionaire would care about the struggles of a single mother trying to make ends meet. She had no way of knowing that their conversation had affected him just as much as it had affected her, or that he had already begun to form a plan that would change both their lives forever. 3 days passed before James contacted her. Sophia was working her morning shift at the diner, refilling coffee cups and taking orders from the usual crowd of construction workers and office employees, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is James Harrison. We met at the charity gala. I'd like to speak with you about an opportunity. Are you free for coffee this afternoon? Sophia stared at the message, her hands trembling slightly. She read it 3 times before she was sure she wasn't imagining it. James Harrison, the billionaire she had covered in wine, wanted to meet with her. Everything okay, hon? Asked Marge, the diner's owner and Sophia's closest thing to a friend. You look like you've seen a ghost. I think I might have, Sophia said, showing Marge the text. Marge whistled low. Well, I'll be damned. What do you think he wants? I have no idea. Sophia's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe he wanted to sue her for the shirt. Maybe he felt sorry for her and wanted to offer charity. Maybe he was just bored and thought it would be amusing to toy with the poor single mother. Only one way to find out, Marge said. You going to meet him? I don't know. Should I? Honey, when a billionaire wants to have coffee with you, you have coffee with him. Worst case scenario, you get a free cup of coffee. Sophia texted back, I'm free at 2 p.m. Where would you like to meet? His response came quickly, the Riverside Cafe on 5th Street. I'll be at the corner table. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of nervous energy. Sophia kept glancing at the clock, wondering what James Harrison could possibly want to discuss with her. She thought about changing clothes, but she only had one decent outfit that wasn't her work uniforms, and she didn't want to be late. The Riverside Cafe was a small, quiet place with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture. It was the kind of place Sophia might have chosen herself, far from the glittering world of the charity gala. She spotted James immediately, sitting at a corner table with a cup of coffee in front of him. He was wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt, looking more like a college professor than a billionaire. "Sophia," he said, standing as she approached. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking." She slid into the seat across from him, accepting the coffee he had already ordered for her. "I have to admit, I'm curious about what this is about. I've been thinking about our conversation the other night," James said, his brown eyes serious. "About your daughter, about your work, about the different worlds we live in." "Okay." Sophia waited, unsure where this was going. "I'd like to make you a proposition." The word, proposition, made Sophia's stomach tighten. She had heard that word before, from men who thought her desperation made her available for things she would never consider. What kind of proposition? James was quiet for a long moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I'm attracted to you, Sophia. I think you're beautiful, intelligent, and strong. I also think you're in a difficult situation that money could solve." Sophia felt her cheeks burn. "Mr. Harrison, please let me finish." He leaned forward slightly. "I'd like to offer you $2 million to spend one night with me. No strings attached, no expectations beyond that one night. The money would be yours regardless of what happens or doesn't happen." The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. $2 million. The number was so large it seemed meaningless, like monopoly money. She could pay off every debt, buy a house, send Lucy to college, start her catering business, and still have money left over. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "I think you do." James's voice was gentle but direct. "I'm offering you financial security in exchange for one night of your time." Sophia's hands began to shake. She set down her coffee cup before she could drop it. "You're asking me to sleep with you for money? I'm offering you a way out of the life you're living now. A chance to give your daughter everything she deserves. By prostituting myself." James flinched slightly. "I wouldn't put it that way." "How would you put it?" Sophia's voice was getting louder, and she could feel other customers looking at them. "Because that's exactly what you're asking me to do. I'm asking you to consider a business arrangement that could change your life." "A business arrangement?" Sophia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call it when you buy women?" "I've never done anything like this before," James said, and something in his tone made her believe him. "But I can't stop thinking about you. About your strength, your honesty, your dedication to your daughter. I want to help you. By degrading me. By offering you choices you don't have right now." Sophia stared at him, trying to reconcile the man who had been kind to her at the gala with the one sitting across from her now. "Do you really think so little of me? Do you think I'm so desperate that I'd sell my body for money?" "I think you're a woman who would do anything for her child," James said quietly. "I think you're drowning and I'm offering you a life preserver." The words stung because they were true. She was drowning. Every day was a struggle to keep her head above water, to pay bills and feed Lucy and keep their small apartment. $2 million would solve every problem she had. But at what cost? "I need time to think," she said, standing abruptly. "Of course." James stood too, pulling a business card from his pocket. "My private number is on there. Call me when you've decided." "And if I say no?" "Then you say no. There's no pressure, Sophia. No consequences. Just an offer." Sophia took the card, her fingers brushing his briefly. "Why me?" "Because you're the first person in years who has talked to me like I'm a human being instead of a bank account. Because you're real in a world full of pretense. Because you're raising a daughter on your own and working 3 jobs to do it." He paused. "Because you're beautiful and I can't stop thinking about you." Sophia looked at him for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes that looked almost like loneliness. "I need to go. Sophia." She turned back at the door. "Whatever you decide, I respect you. I hope you know that." She nodded and walked out into the afternoon sun, her mind reeling. $2 million. A life of security for her and Lucy. College funds and a house with a yard and vacations and everything she had ever dreamed of giving her daughter. All for one night. As she walked to pick up Lucy from school, Sophia felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She thought about her collapsed body on the restaurant floor, about the stack of bills on her kitchen table, about Lucy sleeping on the couch because they couldn't afford a bigger apartment. Then she thought about her daughter's trusting eyes and her own reflection in the mirror. Some things were worth more than money. But $2 million was a lot of money. Sophia didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed next to Lucy, staring at the ceiling and listening to her daughter's soft breathing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw James Harrison's face and heard his voice saying, $2 million. $2 million. Enough to buy a house with a yard where Lucy could play safely. Enough to pay for the best schools, the best medical care, the best of everything. Enough to start her catering business and build a future that wasn't built on desperation and exhaustion. At 3 in the morning she got up and walked to the kitchen. The stack of bills on the table seemed to mock her in the dim light. Rent notice, 7 days to pay or face eviction. Electric bill, service disconnection warning. Lucy's school fees, past due. The numbers swam before her tired eyes, each one a reminder of how precarious their situation was. She pulled out her phone and looked at James's business card, his private number written in bold black ink. It would be so easy to call him, to say yes, to solve all their problems with one difficult night. But what would that make her? What would she tell Lucy when she was older? How would she explain where their sudden wealth had come from? Sophia put the card away and made herself a cup of tea with shaking hands. The next day passed in a blur of work and worry. At the diner, she found herself distracted, forgetting orders and spilling coffee. Marge noticed immediately. "You look like hell, hon. What's eating at you?" "Just tired," Sophia said, but she could see Marge didn't believe her. "This about that billionaire meeting?" Sophia nodded, not trusting her voice. "Want to talk about it?" "I can't. Not yet." Marge squeezed her shoulder. "Whatever it is, you'll figure it out. You always do." But Sophia wasn't sure she would. This decision felt bigger than anything she had ever faced. It felt like it would define who she was, not just who she became. That afternoon, she walked to Lucy's school early and sat on a bench outside, watching the children play. Lucy was on the swings, her face bright with joy as she pumped her legs higher and higher. She was wearing the same clothes she had worn yesterday, and Sophia noticed that her shoes were getting too small. "Mama?" Lucy ran over when she spotted her. "You're early." "I wanted to see you play," Sophia said, pulling her daughter into a hug. "Did you have a good day?" "Sarah brought cupcakes for her birthday and they were so good. And Mrs. Johnson said I'm the best reader in the class." Lucy's eyes sparkled with pride. "Can we stop at the store on the way home? I want to pick out a special snack." Sophia's heart sank. The few dollars in her wallet had to last until her next paycheck. "Maybe tomorrow, sweetheart." Lucy's face fell slightly, but she nodded. "Okay, Mama." As they walked home, Lucy chattered about her day, but Sophia's mind was elsewhere. She was calculating, always calculating. How much money they had, how much they needed, how many days until the next crisis. $2 million would end all of that. That evening, after Lucy was asleep, Sophia sat at her laptop and did something she had never done before. She researched James Harrison. What she found surprised her. He was 34, had inherited his father's real estate company at 22, and had built it into an empire worth billions. But unlike many wealthy people, he kept a low profile. No flashy lifestyle, no scandals, no tabloid headlines. He donated millions to charity but never publicized it. He had never been married, had no children, and rarely appeared in public. The more she read, the more complicated her feelings became. He wasn't the stereotypical rich playboy she had expected. He seemed thoughtful, even lonely. Several articles mentioned his reclusiveness, his difficulty connecting with people who only saw his wealth. But that didn't make his proposition any less insulting. She closed the laptop and went to bed, but sleep still wouldn't come. She thought about her own dreams, the catering business she had planned before Lucy was born, before life got complicated. She had been good at it, had even had a few small jobs that had gone well. But she had never had the capital to make it work, never had the luxury of taking risks when Lucy depended on her for everything. $2 million would give her that luxury. It would give her choices. The next morning, Sophia woke up gritty-eyed and exhausted. Lucy was already awake, sitting at their small kitchen table with a bowl of cereal that was mostly milk because they were running low on everything. "Mama, are you sick?" Lucy asked, looking at her with worried eyes. "You look sad." "I'm just tired, baby." Sophia kissed the top of Lucy's head, breathing in her familiar scent. "But I'm better now that I'm with you." Lucy smiled, but Sophia could see the concern lingering in her eyes. 6 years old, and already she was learning to worry about her mother. It wasn't fair. Children shouldn't have to carry that burden. At work that day, Sophia found herself studying the customers differently. The businessman who ordered the most expensive item on the menu without looking at the price. The woman who left a $20 tip on a $15 meal. The couple who complained about the coffee being too cold but still paid without argument. Money meant different things to different people. For some, it was something to spend carelessly. For others, like Sophia, it was the difference between safety and disaster. During her lunch break, she called Mrs. Rodriguez to check on Lucy. The older woman had been watching her more often lately, and Sophia worried she was asking too much. "She's fine, Mija," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "But can I ask you something? She's been asking me about money lately. About why some people have big houses and some people live in apartments. I think she's starting to notice things." Sophia's heart sank. She had tried so hard to shield Lucy from their financial struggles, but children were observant. They noticed when their friends had things they didn't, when their mothers worked all the time, when conversations stopped abruptly when they entered the room. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that different families have different amounts of money, but that what matters is how much love they have." She seemed satisfied with that. Mrs. Rodriguez paused. "But Sophia, she also asked me why you cry sometimes when you think she's not looking." The words hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. She thought she had been hiding her stress, her fear, her desperation. But Lucy saw everything. "I'll talk to her," Sophia said quietly. "Maybe you should talk to someone else first. About whatever is making you cry." That evening, Sophia took Lucy to the park near their apartment. It was a small space with old equipment, but Lucy loved it anyway. As her daughter played on the swings, Sophia sat on a bench and watched her. Lucy's laughter filled the air, pure and joyful despite everything they lacked. "Push me higher, Mama," Lucy called out. Sophia got up and gave her daughter a gentle push, watching her soar through the air. This was what mattered. This moment, this laughter, this love between them. Not money, not security, not the promise of an easier life. But as they walked home in the gathering dusk, Sophia couldn't ignore the reality of their situation. The rent was due in 5 days and she was still short. The electricity bill was past due. Lucy's shoes were too small and winter was coming. That night, after Lucy was asleep, Sophia sat at her kitchen table with James's business card in her hands. She thought about her daughter's question about money, about her own tears, about the weight of being the only person responsible for their survival. She thought about her dignity, her values, her sense of self-worth. She thought about $2 million. At midnight, she picked up her phone and started to dial James's number. Then she stopped, her finger hovering over the call button. Once she made this call, everything would change. There would be no going back. She set the phone down and went to bed, but sleep still didn't come. The decision was tearing her apart, and she knew she couldn't delay much longer. In 3 days she would have to give James Harrison her answer. 3 days to decide between her dignity and her daughter's future. 3 days to choose between who she was and who she might become. Sophia made her decision on a Thursday morning while watching Lucy eat breakfast. Her daughter was carefully rationing her cereal, making each spoonful last because she knew they were running low on groceries. At 6 years old, Lucy had learned to make small sacrifices without being asked, and that broke Sophia's heart more than any bill or eviction notice ever could. But it wasn't the sight of her daughter's careful eating that decided things. It was what happened next. "Mama," Lucy said, looking up from her bowl with serious eyes, "Mrs. Johnson says our class might take a field trip to the Science Museum next month. It costs $15. $15. Such a small amount, but Sophia knew they didn't have it. She watched her daughter's hopeful expression and felt something inside her crystallize into certainty. "That sounds wonderful, baby. We'll figure it out." Lucy's smile could have powered the city. "Really? Oh, thank you, Mama. I want to see the dinosaurs and the space stuff and everything." After dropping Lucy at school, Sophia walked to the coffee shop where she had first met James. She ordered a cup of coffee she couldn't afford and sat at the same corner table, staring at her phone for a full 10 minutes before finally dialing his number. "Sophia?" He answered on the first ring as if he had been waiting for her call. "I've made my decision," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "And? I want to meet with you. In person. To give you my answer." There was a pause. "Of course. When and where?" "Today. This afternoon. The same coffee shop where we met before. I'll be there at 2. Sophia spent the rest of the morning in a strange state of calm. She had made her choice and now she just had to follow through with it. She worked her shift at the diner mechanically, her mind focused on the conversation she would have with James in a few hours. At exactly 2 o'clock, she walked into the Riverside Cafe. James was already there, sitting at their usual table with 2 cups of coffee waiting. He looked nervous, she realized. His usually composed expression was tight with tension. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. Thank you for the coffee. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, using it to steady herself. I've thought about your offer. A lot. And? Sophia took a deep breath. My answer is no. James went very still. No. No. Her voice was stronger now, more confident. I won't take your money. I won't spend a night with you in exchange for financial security. I won't sell myself no matter how much you're offering. Sophia. Let me finish. She held up her hand. I understand why you made the offer. I understand that you think you're helping me. And I'm not going to pretend that $2 million wouldn't solve every problem I have. It would change my life and my daughter's life in ways I can barely imagine. James leaned forward. Then why? Because some things are more important than money. Sophia's eyes met his directly. My dignity is one of them. My self-respect is another. The kind of woman I want my daughter to see when she looks at me is a third. I never meant to insult you. But you did. Her voice was gentle but firm. You assumed that because I'm desperate, because I'm struggling, I would compromise my values for the right price. You assumed that everything about me was for sale. James looked down at his coffee cup. You're right. I'm sorry. I know you are. I can see it in your face. Sophia leaned back in her chair. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why me? Really? Not the answer you gave me before about me being real or honest. The real reason. James was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. Because you're the first person in years who has seen me as a person instead of a source of money. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see dollar signs or opportunities. You saw someone who had spilled wine on his shirt and needed help. So you decided to prove that I was just like everyone else? That I could be bought? No. He shook his head. I decided that I wanted to help you, and the only way I knew how to help people was with money. It's what I do, Sophia. When I see a problem, I throw money at it until it goes away. Some problems can't be solved with money. I'm learning that. He looked at her with something that might have been admiration. You're stronger than I thought. Stronger than I am, probably. I'm not strong. I'm terrified. Sophia's voice cracked slightly. I'm terrified every day that I won't be able to provide for my daughter, that I'll fail her, that we'll lose our apartment and end up on the street. I'm so scared sometimes that I can't breathe. Then why turn down the money? Because being broke is temporary. Compromising who I am is forever. She stood up from the table. I have to go. I need to pick up Lucy from school. Sophia, wait. James stood too. I know you've said no to my original offer and I respect that. But would you consider letting me help you in another way? She turned back, suspicious. What do you mean? I mean legitimately. As a business investment, not a personal transaction. He pulled out his phone and showed her something on the screen. I've been doing some research since we met. You worked for a catering company before Lucy was born. You were good at it. Sophia stared at the phone screen, which showed her old LinkedIn profile from years ago. How did you? I had my assistant look into it. You got excellent reviews from every client. You were building a reputation before you had to stop to focus on raising your daughter. He put the phone away. What if I invested in your catering business? Real investment with contracts and expectations and profit sharing. Nothing personal, nothing inappropriate. Just business. I don't have a catering business. But you could. With the right backing, the right equipment, the right opportunities. His eyes were bright with enthusiasm. I host a lot of corporate events. I know people who need catering services. I could give you the capital to start and the connections to succeed. Sophia felt her heart begin to race. Why would you do that? Because you're talented. Because you deserve a chance. Because sometimes the best investments are in people, not properties. He paused. And because I'd like to make up for insulting you with my first offer. This isn't charity? It's not charity. It's business. You'd pay back the initial investment with interest. You'd provide services to my company and others. You'd earn every dollar you make. He smiled. Though I admit, the terms would be very favorable to you. Sophia looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of deception or hidden agenda. She saw only sincerity and something that looked like hope. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. He handed her a different business card. That's my office number. Call me if you decide you're interested in discussing the details. As Sophia walked to Lucy's school, her mind was spinning. A legitimate business opportunity. A chance to build something real, something she could be proud of. A way to provide for Lucy without compromising her values. It almost seemed too good to be true. But as she watched Lucy run toward her with a bright smile and arms full of artwork from school, Sophia allowed herself to hope. Maybe this was the answer she had been looking for. Maybe this was how their story would change without her having to sacrifice who she was. "Mama, look what I made." Lucy held up a drawing of two stick figures standing in front of a house with a big yard. "It's you and me in our dream house." Sophia looked at the drawing and felt tears prick her eyes. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Do you think we'll ever have a house like that?" For the first time in months, Sophia's answer came without hesitation. "Yes, baby. I think we will." 3 days passed before Sophia called James's office. She spent those days researching, planning, and trying to convince herself that his offer was real. She looked up his company, read about his business practices, and even found mentions of other small businesses he had invested in over the years. All of them seemed to be legitimate partnerships, not charity disguised as business deals. Still, she was nervous when she dialed his office number. "Harrison Enterprises, Mr. Harrison's office," answered a crisp professional voice. "This is Sophia Williams. Mr. Harrison asked me to call about a potential business discussion." "Of course, Ms. Williams. Mr. Harrison has been expecting your call. Are you available to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m.? "Yes, that would be fine." "Excellent. The meeting will be at our offices on the 40th floor of the Continental Building. Security will have your name at the desk." After hanging up, Sophia stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was really doing this. She was going to meet with a billionaire about starting her own business. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, someone braver and more confident than she felt inside. That evening, she called Mrs. Rodriguez to arrange childcare for the next morning, then spent an hour going through her small closet trying to find something appropriate to wear to a business meeting. She settled on her black dress pants, a white blouse, and a blazer she had bought for job interviews years ago. "You look fancy, Mama," Lucy said from the bed where she was coloring. "Are you going somewhere special?" "I have a meeting tomorrow morning." "About work?" "Good work or bad work?" Sophia smiled at her daughter's direct question. "Hopefully good work, baby. Maybe really good work." The Continental Building was in the heart of the financial district, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. Sophia had walked past it countless times but had never imagined she would have reason to go inside. The lobby was intimidating, all marble and mirrors with security guards who looked like they could stop a small army. But when she gave her name at the desk, the guard smiled and handed her a visitor's badge. "40th floor, Ms. Williams. The elevator on your left will take you straight up." The elevator ride seemed to last forever. Sophia watched the floor numbers climb and tried to calm her racing heart. She was out of her depth here, in a world of power suits and million-dollar deals. What if James changed his mind when he saw her? What if this was all some elaborate joke? The elevator opened directly into a reception area that was more elegant than most people's homes. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a magazine. "Ms. Williams?" A woman in her 30s approached with a warm smile. "I'm Jennifer, Mr. Harrison's assistant. He's ready to see you now." Jennifer led her down a hallway lined with artwork that probably cost more than Sophia's yearly salary. They stopped at a set of double doors at the end of the hall. "Mr. Harrison, Ms. Williams is here," Jennifer announced, opening the doors. James's office was enormous, with the same spectacular city views and elegant furnishings as the reception area. But what struck Sophia most was how warm it felt, despite its size. There were plants everywhere, comfortable seating areas, and photographs that looked personal rather than corporate. James stood up from behind his desk as she entered. He was wearing a dark suit that was perfectly tailored, but his smile was the same genuine expression she remembered from the coffee shop. "Sophia, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." He gestured to a seating area with 2 comfortable chairs and a low table. "Can I get you coffee? Water?" "Coffee would be nice, thank you." As Jennifer brought them coffee and left them alone, Sophia looked around the office more carefully. The photographs on his desk showed him with various groups of people at what looked like business events, but there were no personal photos, no family pictures. "Impressive view," she said, looking out at the city spread below them. "It is. Though I have to admit, I don't notice it much anymore." James settled into the chair across from her. "Thank you for considering my proposal. I know it must seem strange coming from someone you barely know." "It does seem strange," Sophia agreed. "But I've done my research. Your company has a good reputation, and the businesses you've invested in seem to do well. I'm glad you checked. It shows you're thinking like a businesswoman." He pulled out a folder from the table between them. I've had my team put together some preliminary numbers and projections for a catering startup. Obviously, these would change based on your specific plans and goals, but it gives us a starting point for discussion. Sophia opened the folder and felt her breath catch. The numbers were more generous than she had dared to hope. Initial investment capital, equipment costs, marketing budget, projected revenue, profit margins, it was all there, laid out in professional detail. This is really comprehensive, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I believe in doing things properly. If we're going to do this, we should do it right. James leaned forward slightly. What are your thoughts? Does this look like something you'd be interested in pursuing? Sophia studied the papers more carefully, her mind racing. The investment amount would cover everything she needed to start a real business. Professional-grade equipment, a commercial kitchen rental, initial inventory, marketing materials, even a small salary for herself during the startup phase. The terms seem very favorable to me, she said carefully. Almost too favorable. What's your expected return on investment? Standard business returns. Percentage of profits. Repayment of initial capital with reasonable interest. Nothing excessive. He paused. I told you this was a business deal, Sophia. I meant that. But why? You could invest this money anywhere and probably get better returns. Why take a risk on someone with no business experience? James was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city view. Do you know how I got started in business? You inherited your father's company. That's true, but I also nearly ran it into the ground in the first year. He turned back to her. I was 22, arrogant and completely unprepared. I made every mistake you can imagine. The only reason the company survived was because my father's old partner, Robert Chin, believed in me enough to give me a second chance and teach me what I needed to know. What happened to him? He died 5 years ago. Cancer. James's expression grew sad. Before he died, he made me promise that if I ever had the chance to give someone else the opportunity he gave me, I would take it. And you think I'm that someone? I think you're talented, hardworking, and determined. I think you have good instincts and strong values. Most importantly, I think you're motivated by the right reasons you want to build something for your daughter. He smiled. Plus, I've tasted your cooking. Sophia looked at him in surprise. When? At the charity gala. I made sure to try some of the hors d'oeuvres you were serving. They were excellent. Despite her nervousness, Sophia felt a smile tug at her lips. You were checking up on my cooking skills? I was conducting market research, he said solemnly, then grinned. Though I admit, the chocolate tartlets were my real motivation. For the first time since entering his office, Sophia felt herself relax. This was the same man who had defended her when she spilled wine on his shirt, the same person who had listened to her talk about Lucy with genuine interest. If I agreed to this, she said slowly, what would the next steps be? We'd have contracts drawn up by lawyers, your lawyer and mine, so you have independent representation. We'd set up the business structure, find you a commercial kitchen space, and start ordering equipment. I'd introduce you to some potential clients to help you get started. He leaned back in his chair. The goal would be to have you operational within 3 months. 3 months? Sophia's head spun. That seems so fast. It doesn't have to be. We can take whatever timeline makes you comfortable. But I think you'd be surprised how quickly things can move when you have adequate resources. Adequate resources? Sophia almost laughed. She had been operating on inadequate resources for so long that she had forgotten what the alternative looked like. I need to think about this, she said. It's a big decision. Of course. Take all the time you need. James stood up and walked to his desk, returning with another business card. This has my personal attorney's contact information. If you decide to move forward, call her first. She'll review everything and make sure your interests are protected. Your attorney will protect my interests? That's how legitimate business deals work, Sophia. Both parties need to be protected. He walked her to the door. I hope you'll say yes, but only if it feels right to you. Don't let my enthusiasm pressure you into something you're not ready for. As Sophia rode the elevator back down to street level, she felt like she was in a dream. 3 hours ago, she had been serving coffee to construction workers at the diner. Now she was holding business plans for her own catering company, complete with startup capital that would have taken her years to save on her own. She walked home slowly, thinking about everything James had said. His story about his father's partner rang true, and she had seen genuine emotion in his eyes when he talked about the man who had helped him. Maybe this really was just business. Maybe some opportunities were exactly what they appeared to be. That evening, as she helped Lucy with her homework, her daughter looked up at her with curious eyes. Mama, you look different today. Happy different. Do I? Aha. Like when you smile at me in the morning. Did something good happen? Sophia thought about the folder of business plans sitting on her kitchen table, about the possibility of building something real and lasting for both of them. Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe something very good happened. As Lucy went back to her homework, Sophia allowed herself to imagine what their life might look like in a year. A successful business, financial security, maybe even that house with a yard that Lucy had drawn. It seemed almost too good to be true, but for the first time in years, Sophia was ready to believe in possibilities instead of just surviving from day to day. Sophia called James's attorney the next morning. Rebecca Martinez was a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in small business law and had a reputation for protecting her clients' interests. She agreed to meet with Sophia that afternoon to review the proposed investment deal. "This is unusual," Rebecca said after reading through the contract terms. "The investment amount is substantial, but the terms are extremely favorable to you. Almost suspiciously so." "That's what I was afraid of," Sophia said. "What am I missing?" "Honestly, I can't find the catch. Mr. Harrison gets a reasonable return on his investment, but he's taking on most of the risk. If the business fails, you're not personally liable for the losses beyond your initial equity stake." Rebecca looked at her over her reading glasses. "Why is he doing this?" "He says he wants to help me get started. That someone helped him when he was young." "And you believe him?" Sophia thought about her conversations with James, about the sadness in his eyes when he mentioned his father's partner, about the genuine way he had listened to her talk about Lucy. "I think I do. Well, legally speaking, this contract is solid. Fair terms, clear expectations, proper protections for both parties." Rebecca closed the folder. "From a business standpoint, I'd say you'd be crazy not to sign it." 2 days later, Sophia called James to accept his offer. His enthusiasm was immediate and infectious. "That's wonderful news," he said. "When can we start?" "How about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow it is. I'll pick you up at 9, and we'll look at some commercial kitchen spaces I've identified." The next morning, James arrived in a surprisingly modest car, a silver sedan instead of the luxury vehicle Sophia had expected. He was dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt, looking more like someone's neighbor than a billionaire businessman. "Ready to find your kitchen?" he asked as she got into the passenger seat. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Good. That means this matters to you." He pulled away from the curb. Nervous energy can be useful if you channel it properly. Their first stop was a commercial kitchen space in a converted warehouse. It was clean and well-equipped, but something about it felt sterile and impersonal. The second location was better, warmer, with good natural light and a layout that made sense for catering work. "What do you think?" James asked as they walked through the space. "It feels right," Sophia said, running her hand along one of the stainless steel prep counters. "I can see myself working here." "Then let's make it happen." The negotiations with the landlord went smoother than Sophia had expected, partly because James's name carried weight, but mostly because he knew how to structure a deal that worked for everyone involved. Within 2 hours they had a signed lease agreement. "How did you make that look so easy?" Sophia asked as they left the building. "Experience. And the fact that we were offering fair terms for a space that's been empty for 3 months." He smiled. "Plus, I may have mentioned that your catering company would be handling events for Harrison Enterprises. That gave you some credibility." Over the following weeks, James proved to be an ideal business partner. He was available when Sophia needed guidance, but he didn't try to micromanage or make decisions for her. When she chose equipment suppliers, he reviewed her choices and offered suggestions but let her make the final calls. When she designed her initial menu, he arranged for a small focus group of his employees to try the dishes and provide feedback. "The salmon tartlets are incredible," Jennifer, his assistant, told Sophia after one tasting session. "And the chocolate dessert course made our accountant actually moan with pleasure." "Really?" Sophia felt a flush of pride. "I was worried the flavors might be too bold." "Bold is good. Memorable is better. And these are definitely memorable." As the business took shape, Sophia found herself working closely with James on marketing strategies and client development. She had expected him to be distant or formal, but he was surprisingly down to earth and easy to talk to. He listened to her ideas, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in her success. "You're not what I expected," she told him one afternoon as they reviewed proposals for their first major event, a corporate retreat for 200 people. "What did you expect?" "Someone more commanding, I guess. More intimidating." "You're actually pretty normal for a billionaire." James laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment. Though I should probably warn you that I can be commanding when necessary." Just ask my board of directors. I find that hard to believe. Then you haven't seen me negotiate a hostile takeover. Despite the joke, Sophia could see glimpses of the businessman underneath James's casual exterior. He was sharp, decisive, and clearly used to being in charge. But with her, he was patient and collaborative, treating her as an equal partner rather than someone he was doing a favor for. Their professional relationship deepened into something that felt like friendship. James would call to check on her progress, not in a supervisory way but with genuine interest in how she was doing. He remembered details about Lucy's school activities and asked about them during their meetings. How did Lucy's field trip to the Science Museum go? He asked one morning as they reviewed the final preparations for the corporate retreat. She loved it. Spent 2 hours telling me about the dinosaur exhibit. Sophia smiled. Thank you for asking. She sounds like a smart kid. She is. Sometimes too smart for her own good. Sophia's expression grew more serious. She's been asking questions about the business, about how we suddenly have money for things we couldn't afford before. What do you tell her? The truth. That I'm starting my own company and we're going to be okay now. Sophia paused. She wants to meet you. She says anyone who helps her mama must be nice. James looked surprised. She wants to meet me? You don't have to. I know you're busy and she can be a lot to handle. I'd love to meet her, James said, and something in his voice made Sophia look at him more closely. If you think that would be appropriate. There was something vulnerable in his expression, something that suggested he didn't get many opportunities to interact with children. Sophia found herself wondering about his life outside of work, about whether he ever got lonely in his successful, isolated world. Maybe we could arrange something casual, she said. After the retreat when things calmed down a bit. I'd like that. The corporate retreat was Sophia's first major test as a business owner, and she was terrified that something would go wrong. But James had arranged for her to have a full support staff, and her careful planning paid off. The food was excellent, the service was smooth, and the client was thrilled with the results. You did it, James said as they cleaned up after the last guest had gone home. Your first major event and it was flawless. We did it, Sophia corrected. I couldn't have managed this without your support. You could have. It might have taken longer, but you would have found a way. He looked at her with something that might have been pride. You're stronger than you think, Sophia. As they worked side by side packing up equipment and leftover food, Sophia realized that something had shifted between them. What had started as a business relationship had become something deeper, not romantic, not yet, but a genuine connection built on mutual respect and shared goals. For the first time in years, Sophia felt like she had a partner in building her future. Someone who believed in her abilities and wanted to see her succeed. It was a feeling she hadn't even known she was missing. James, she said as they loaded the last of the equipment into his car. Yes. Thank you. For all of this. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. He stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. Thank you for proving that my faith was justified. And for showing me that some risks are worth taking. As they drove back to the city in comfortable silence, Sophia thought about how much her life had changed in just a few weeks. She had a successful business, financial security, and something she hadn't had in years, hope for the future. But more than that, she was beginning to suspect that James Harrison might be more than just a business partner. He might be someone she could trust with her heart as well as her dreams. 6 months after signing their partnership agreement, Sophia's catering business was thriving beyond her wildest expectations. Elite Events by Sophia had catered corporate functions, wedding receptions and charity galas throughout the city. Word of mouth had spread quickly, and her calendar was booked solid for the next 3 months. The success felt surreal sometimes. Sophia would wake up in her new 2-bedroom apartment, the one with a real bedroom for Lucy and a kitchen large enough for 2 people to cook in, and have to remind herself that this was really her life now. Mama, you're daydreaming again, Lucy said from her seat at their new dining table, where she was working on her homework. Sorry, sweetheart. What did you need? Help with my math problems. But first, can I ask you something? Of course. Lucy put down her pencil and looked at her mother with serious eyes. Is James your boyfriend? The question caught Sophia completely off guard. What? No, honey. James is my business partner. He helped me start the catering company, remember? I know that. But Mrs. Rodriguez says when a man and a woman spend a lot of time together and smile at each other the way you and James do, it usually means something special. Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Mrs. Rodriguez said that? She also said you look happier than you have in years, and it's not just because of the business. Lucy tilted her head. Do you like James, Mama? Like him? Out of the mouths of babes. Sophia sat down next to her daughter, considering how to answer honestly without saying too much. The truth was that her feelings for James had been growing stronger with each passing week. What had started as professional respect had deepened into genuine affection and attraction. She looked forward to their meetings, found herself thinking about him at odd moments, and had started paying more attention to how she looked when she knew she would see him. But she had been careful not to let those feelings show. Their business relationship was too important to complicate with personal emotions, and she wasn't sure James felt the same way about her. I do like James, she said carefully. He's a good man and he's been very kind to us. But do you like him? Sophia smiled at her daughter's persistence. Maybe a little. But it's complicated, Lucy. We work together and I don't want to do anything that might mess up our business partnership. Why would liking him mess it up? Sometimes when adults have romantic feelings for each other, it can make working together difficult if things don't work out. Lucy considered this with the seriousness of a 6-year-old philosopher. But what if things do work out? What if he likes you too? Then we'll figure it out when that happens. But for now we're just friends and business partners, okay? Lucy nodded, though her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Okay. But Mama? Yes. I think he likes you too. He gets a funny look on his face when he talks about you. Before Sophia could ask what she meant by that, her phone rang. James's name appeared on the screen and Lucy grinned knowingly. Hi, James, Sophia answered, trying to ignore her daughter's smug expression. Hi. I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted to discuss the Morrison wedding this weekend. Of course. What's on your mind? Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner tomorrow night to go over the details. Somewhere quiet where we can talk without interruptions. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. In all their months of working together, they had never had what could be considered a dinner meeting. Their discussions usually took place in his office or at the commercial kitchen during business hours. That sounds fine. Where did you have in mind? There's a small Italian restaurant called Marco's on the east side. Nothing fancy, but the food is excellent and it's usually quiet enough for conversation. I'll see you there. What time? 7:30? Perfect. I'll see you tomorrow. After she hung up, Lucy was looking at her with raised eyebrows. A dinner meeting? It's business, Lucy. Sure it is. The next evening, Sophia found herself changing clothes 3 times before settling on a blue dress that was professional but flattering. She told herself it was just a business meeting, but she couldn't deny the flutter of excitement in her stomach. Marco's was exactly as James had described, small, intimate, with soft lighting and the kind of atmosphere that was more suited to romance than business discussions. James was already seated at a corner table when she arrived, and he stood as she approached. You look beautiful, he said, then seemed to catch himself. I mean, you look nice. Professional. Thank you. Sophia felt her cheeks warm. This is a lovely place. They ordered wine and made small talk about the business while they waited for their food, but there was an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there in their previous meetings. Sophia found herself noticing details she had tried to ignore before: the way James's eyes crinkled when he smiled, the sound of his laugh, the way he listened to her with complete attention. The Morrison wedding should be straightforward, James said as their entrees arrived. 200 guests, outdoor ceremony, reception in the garden pavilion. I've got everything under control. The menu is finalized, the staff is confirmed, and we've done 3 site visits to make sure everything will run smoothly. Good. That's what I expected. He paused, twirling pasta around his fork. Sophia, can I ask you something that's not business related? Of course. Are you happy? With how things have turned out, I mean. With the business, with your new life. The question surprised her with its earnestness. Yes, I'm very happy. Happier than I've been in years. The business is successful, Lucy is thriving, we have financial security for the first time since she was born. She met his eyes. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You don't owe me anything. You've earned every bit of your success. With your help. With my initial investment. Everything else has been your talent, your hard work, your dedication. He set down his fork and leaned forward slightly. I need you to understand something, Sophia. What you've built isn't because I'm a generous benefactor. It's because you're exceptional at what you do. The intensity in his voice made her heart race. James, I'm not finished. He took a breath, seeming to gather his courage. When I first made you that inappropriate offer 6 months ago, I thought I was being generous. I thought I was helping someone who needed rescuing. I was wrong about everything except how much you needed help. What do you mean? I mean you didn't need rescuing. You needed opportunity. You didn't need charity. You needed investment in your abilities. His eyes never left hers. You didn't need someone to save you. You needed someone to believe in you. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. And you did. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Because I could see what you couldn't. I could see your strength, your talent, your determination. I could see that you were going to succeed with or without my help. I just wanted to make it easier. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling between them. Sophia realized that this conversation was about more than business success or gratitude. It was about respect, understanding, and something deeper that neither of them had been willing to name. Can I ask you something now? Sophia said. Anything. Why haven't you ever married? Had a family? James's expression grew thoughtful. Honest answer? Because I never found anyone who saw me as more than my bank account. Every relationship I've had has been complicated by money. Either they wanted it, or they resented it, or they were intimidated by it. That must be lonely. It is. It's been easier to focus on work, on building the business, on keeping myself busy. He smiled ruefully. Until I met someone who spilled wine on my shirt and treated me like a person instead of a walking ATM. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. Sophia felt as if they were standing on the edge of something important, something that could change everything. James? She said softly. Yes. I need to tell you something. My feelings for you have changed over these past months. What started as professional respect has become something more personal. His intake of breath was audible. Sophia. Let me finish. I've been trying to keep things professional because I didn't want to complicate our business relationship. But I can't pretend anymore that I don't have feelings for you. What kind of feelings? She met his eyes directly, her heart pounding. The kind that make me look forward to our meetings more than I should. The kind that make me think about you when you're not around. The kind that make me hope you might feel the same way. James reached across the table and took her hand. I do feel the same way. I've been fighting it for months because I didn't want you to think I had ulterior motives, that the business investment was just an elaborate way to get close to you. Was it? No. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping that once we'd proven we could work together successfully, maybe we could explore what else might be possible between us. Sophia looked down at their joined hands, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. So what happens now? Now we take things slowly. We see where this leads without putting pressure on ourselves or the business. He squeezed her hand gently. I'd like to take you on a real date, Sophia. Not a business meeting disguised as dinner, but an actual date. I'd like that too. And I'd like to meet Lucy properly. Not as your business partner, but as someone who cares about you and wants to be part of your life. Sophia's heart swelled. She's been asking about you. She thinks you're my boyfriend. Smart kid. What did you tell her? That we're friends and business partners. But she didn't believe me. James laughed. I like her already. As they finished dinner and walked to their cars, Sophia felt as if her life was shifting into a new chapter. The scared, desperate woman who had collapsed in the restaurant kitchen 6 months ago seemed like a different person. This woman had a successful business, a secure future, and now the possibility of love with a man who had proven his worth through actions rather than words. Sophia, James said as they reached her car. Yes. Thank you for taking a chance on me. On us. Thank you for seeing me as more than someone who needed saving. He leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow? As Sophia drove home, she thought about Lucy's drawing of their dream house and realized that her daughter's picture might have been missing something important. Maybe their dream house needed room for one more person. Maybe their family was about to grow in the most wonderful way possible. 1 year later, Sophia stood in the garden of the Morrison estate, watching her catering team put the finishing touches on what would be elite events by Sophia's most ambitious project yet, a wedding for 300 guests with a 7-course dinner and elaborate dessert station. Everything looks perfect, James said, coming up behind her and slipping his arms around her waist. You've outdone yourself. We've outdone ourselves, Sophia corrected, leaning back against his chest. I couldn't have managed an event this size without your connections and support. Your talent, my connections. We make a good team. They did make a good team both in business and in life. Over the past year, their relationship had developed naturally and beautifully. James had become a regular presence in their lives, joining them for dinner several times a week, attending Lucy's school events, and gradually becoming the father figure Sophia's daughter had never had. Lucy adored him, especially after he had spent an entire Saturday helping her build a science project volcano that had impressed her teacher and won first place at the school science fair. Sophia had known then that her feelings for James went deeper than attraction or gratitude. She was genuinely, completely in love with him. "Mama?" Lucy's voice called from across the garden. She was wearing a junior bridesmaid dress and carrying a basket of flower petals, part of her job helping with the wedding ceremony. "Can I go see the dessert table? I promise I won't touch anything." "Go ahead, but remember what we talked about. Look with your eyes, not with your hands." As Lucy skipped away, James tightened his arms around Sophia. "She's growing up so fast." "I know. Sometimes I look at her and can't believe she's the same little girl who used to sleep on my couch because we couldn't afford a bigger apartment. And sometimes I look at you and can't believe you're the same woman who was terrified to accept help because you thought it made you weak." Sophia turned in his arms to face him. "I wasn't weak. I was proud. You were both. And I love both sides of you." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Have I told you today that I'm proud of you? Only about 5 times. Not nearly enough then?" The wedding ceremony began shortly after sunset, and Sophia watched from the sidelines as her carefully orchestrated plan unfolded perfectly. The bride was radiant, the groom was emotional, and the guests were clearly impressed by every detail of the celebration. "This is what you were meant to do," James whispered during the exchange of vows. "Create beautiful moments for people." Sophia felt a familiar swell of pride and gratitude. A year ago, she had been serving other people's events and going home to worry about bills. Tonight, she was running her own successful company and watching her creative vision come to life. During the reception, as her staff served the meal she had planned and prepared, Sophia found herself thinking about the journey that had brought her here. The desperation, the impossible offer, the decision to maintain her dignity even when it seemed like the harder choice. "You're thinking deep thoughts," James observed, joining her near the edge of the garden where she was watching the dancing. "Just remembering how different things were a year ago. Any regrets? About turning down your first offer?" "Never." She smiled at him. "About accepting your second offer?" "Not a single one." "Good. Because I have something else to offer you." Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. He seemed nervous, which was unusual for a man who routinely made million-dollar business decisions without breaking a sweat. "James? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right actually. More right than I ever thought possible." He took her hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden, away from the celebration. "Sophia, this past year has been the best year of my life." "Mine too. You and Lucy have made me understand what I was missing before I met you. Not just love but family. Purpose beyond just making money. A reason to build something that matters." Sophia's heart began to race as James dropped to one knee and pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Sophia Williams, you are the strongest, most beautiful, most amazing woman I've ever known. You've made me a better man, and you've shown me what real love looks like." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring that caught the light from the garden lanterns. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, Sophia couldn't breathe. The ring was beautiful, but more important was the love and hope she saw in James's eyes. This was the man who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself, who had invested in her dreams and helped them become reality, who had become not just her partner but her best friend. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, of course I'll marry you." As James slipped the ring onto her finger, Sophia felt as if her entire life had led to this moment. All the struggles, all the fear, all the impossible choices had been worth it to arrive here in this garden, with this man, wearing this ring that symbolized a future she had never dared to dream possible. "Mama?" Lucy's excited voice interrupted their kiss as she came running toward them, having apparently witnessed the proposal from across the garden. "James asked you to marry him." "Yes, he did," Sophia laughed, pulling her daughter into their embrace. "What do you think about that?" "I think it's perfect. Does this mean James will be my dad now?" James knelt down to Lucy's level, his expression serious. "Only if you want me to be. I know I can't replace your biological father, but I love you and your mom very much, and I'd be honored to be your stepdad." Lucy threw her arms around his neck. "I've always wanted a dad. And you're the best one I could have asked for." As the three of them stood together in the garden, surrounded by the beautiful wedding celebration that Sophia had created, she realized that her own fairy tale was just beginning. She had started this journey as a single mother struggling to survive, and she was ending it as a successful businesswoman about to marry the love of her life. 6 months later, They had their own wedding in the same garden where James had proposed. Lucy served as flower girl, Mrs. Rodriguez cried happy tears in the front row, and Elite Events by Sophia catered the reception with a menu that included chocolate tartlets in honor of their first meeting. During their first dance as husband and wife, James whispered in Sophia's ear, "Thank you for saying no to my first offer. Thank you for making a second one. And thank you for teaching me that the best things in life can't be bought. What can they be? Earned, built, shared with the people you love." As they danced under the stars, Sophia thought about the decision that had changed everything. She had chosen dignity over desperation, integrity over instant gratification, and love over money. In return, she had received all the things money couldn't buy: respect, partnership, and a love story that was truly her own. Sometimes the best answer to an impossible offer was simply no. And sometimes, that no opened the door to possibilities that were better than anything money could provide. Dear listeners, thank you so much for taking this journey with Sophia, James, and Lucy. Their story reminds us that our choices define us more than our circumstances, and that saying no to the wrong thing can open doors to everything right. I'd love to hear from you. What moment in the story resonated with you most? Do you think Sophia made the right decision in turning down James's first offer? How do you think their story will continue? And what would you have done in Sophia's position? Your comments and thoughts mean the world to me and help me create better stories for you. Please share your reactions below.